The national average petrol price has risen to $2.11 a litre, delivering another blow to Australians who are already struggling with cost of living pressures. Let's bring in live now CBA's mining and energy economist, Vivek Dhar. Vivek, thanks for your time. What's going on here? Why are prices getting so high?
So when we look at what's happened with petrol prices in particular, it's largely being driven by what we're seeing in the oil market. And in specifics in terms of what has driven that, it is what OPEC Plus, which is a group of countries that control about 40% of global supply, it is what they're doing on the supply side. So we have seen Saudi Arabia lead the cartel, and they have sidelined about 1% of global supply, or have said they will until the end of this year. And that's really what has seen that oil price threaten to move potentially into the $100 a barrel. But we have seen global growth concerns become an issue very recently. And we've seen Brent, which was at $95 a barrel at the end of last week, it's actually now come off closer to 90. So we are seeing a tug of war play out right now, but OPEC Plus and their supply side cuts have been the biggest driver of higher oil prices and in turn, higher petrol prices.
Okay, so you mentioned that point by the end of the year, but what does that mean in terms of relief at the Bowser and whether or not there is any insight for Australians?
Sure. So look, in terms of the major driver that we look at when it comes to petrol prices, it's the Australian dollar. So when that weakens, the petrol prices increase as well. And that for me is the one which we really have to watch for. So the Australian dollar is around 64 right now. And when we look at what's happening with the Aussie, if iron ore prices fall from where they are right now, there is a risk that we see that move lower. And that's really where that petrol price can stay in this $2.10 to $2.20 litre range. Now, we don't expect this to last into 2024, but certainly this last quarter is looking to be very tight on the oil market side. So it's two factors to look at, but so far we are looking at steady at $2.10 to $2.20 a litre. And relief will come if we see that oil price push below $90 a barrel. And right now, that looks to be a smaller risk than it's staying in the 90s.
So Vivek, there could be broader implications here, couldn't there? I mean, high petrol prices could add to consumer price growth in the September quarter. That could in turn give Michelle Bullock some food for thought over at the RBA, with us all on rates watch, of course, this afternoon. How do you see that all tying in together?
Sure. So look, in terms of how petrol prices impact the household, I think that's really critical. So the RBA first tends to look through highly volatile items, and petrol is certainly one of them. But how petrol prices impact the household is really, really crucial here. So usually because it's used and it must be used generally every day, it basically just leaves less discretionary income. And that is something that can weigh on consumer spending and actually accelerate this view that Australia's consumer sector is slowing faster than people think. So that is certainly one of the risks that we see, is that high petrol prices may actually be something that you see credit card spending fall, you see a lot of the discretionary spending fall, and that's something that could see the case for cuts become very much front and center early next year.
Vivek, speaking of extra costs for households, a lot of people's air conditioners are getting an early workout this year. What's the trend on power prices? Where are we up to on that? Could Australians be in for a bit of a shock when they start getting some of those bills coming in over summer?
So look, in terms of how that flows through to the retail side, we tend to see that move every financial year. And given that we've seen this financial year, the default market offer, we've already seen about 20 to 30% increase across the East Coast. Now, a lot of that has been blunted by government intervention and providing some level of subsidies to help the household sector. So that's good news, in that what we're seeing, at least this financial year, even a very warm summer, is unlikely to be very negative for the retail side or households. But the sector which is exposed to wholesale electricity prices, and that's your bigger businesses, that is something that is worth watching for come summer. If we see extremely warm temperatures, and on top of that, we see unreliability at coal power plants, both those factors, which actually go hand in hand, could could see those power prices rise. So I'd say the exposure is more on the larger business side, and you'd have to see those factors play out. A warm summer and very much unreliability amongst the coal power generation fleet.
Vivek, I really appreciate your analysis. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you.